Welcome to KC Cares. We're Kansas City's nonprofit voice, and we're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Kansas City has been at the apex of the sports world the last few years, with our Kansas City Chiefs winning back-to-back Super Bowls, the Kansas City Monarchs winning a championship, the arrival of the KC Current and the excitement around their stadium, and the success of Sporting KC. Well, now Kansas City sits on the precipice of a huge event on the international stage, the World Cup. Kansas City will host 6 matches, including a quarterfinal. Community leaders worked tirelessly to land World Cup games, and it paid off. Now the nitty-gritty work begins to prepare Kansas City for the actual games and the entire experience surrounding them. A nonprofit entity, KC 2026, has been formed to manage the day-to-day operations, with Katherine Holland serving as its executive director. With guidance from a board of directors comprised of some of Kansas City's top leaders, it's Holland's job to put all the pieces together. Holland has had a distinguished career in sports management and marketing, including oversight of the 2017 U.S. Figure Skating Championships. And we welcome Katherine to KC Cares, who will give us an inside look at all things KC 2026. Oh my goodness, so much going on.
There's a lot. Yeah, Kansas City is definitely, an exciting place to be right now.
Well, perhaps the best place to start, since we're all about nonprofits, is let's talk about KC 2026, which is a nonprofit, but of a different number, which only government could come up with, right? By 15 different ways. So tell us a little bit about that and what the entity part of it is.
Sure. I think that believe it or not, FIFA is a 501c4. And, my understanding is that status provides us a little bit more flexibility when it comes to being able to use funds, particularly as it relates to lobbying for, state funding, which obviously the size and scope of this project and it being very much driven by kind of a bi-state regionality, and we're seeking support from financial support from both the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri. So we've, been able to sort of retain some resources to help us navigate that process and those conversations. So really, it functions pretty much the same. We just have a little bit more flexibility with how we can use the funds.
Why was a quote nonprofit formed? Okay, so you're telling us funds. Why was the decision made to do that as opposed to just keep it under, for example, the Sports Commission on its own?
Honestly, it was an early mandate by FIFA as part of the requirements to be a host city. So, and I think in their mind, they were hoping that there would be some consistency across the way that, all of the entities were formed. Particularly in the United States. So there's 11 US cities, 2 Canadian cities, and 3 cities in Mexico. And their governance structures are different. I couldn't necessarily speak to the details around the Canada and Mexico entities. But it's everything to sort of, mitigate liability for those other organizations like the Sports Commission. If it would have been nested under there, it was, an opportunity to sort of source resources that would go directly to that project, to have an independent board that would help guide and manage it. So it just really, from a sort of, it was twofold. FIFA kind of asked and required that we set up a different entity. And then, from our local level, it seemed like that was the best way to, again, plan and execute this event. It's the largest event in history, and certainly is deserving of its own entity. That's not to say that, obviously all of the partner organizations like the Sports Commission and the Chiefs and Sporting KC and Visit KC, obviously Sporting and the Chiefs not being nonprofits, but Visit KC and the Sports Commission being nonprofits, we're all partnered, and there's board representation from, there's private individuals, there's obviously sporting teams, and then there's government, officials elected and appointed. So it really kind of covers the gamut of the sectors that this event is going to touch as we plan it.
You have been involved in the planning before the official forming of KC 2026. How long have you been working on this?
So I have been peripherally involved with the project since 2017, when we first started bidding to be included as part of the United bid, which was, again, that collaborative bid between Canada, the United States, and Mexico that was submitted to FIFA for consideration. So, we had to spend a lot of time revising and resubmitting materials, again, primarily driven by the Sports Commission and Sporting KC. The Sports Commission's role being to attract major sporting events to Kansas City. So, and obviously then we COVID hit and the process was sort of stalled. We were still, revising and resubmitting, but FIFA was delayed in some of the decision making that they needed to embark on. And then they scheduled our final site visit in October of 2021. And so we knew that was our, sort of last chance to put our best foot forward. And it was decided that there needed to be one person to kind of lead that charge, because you can imagine it was a lot of different entities that we needed to pull together to participate in that final site visit. So probably in about early September of 2021, I was kind of voluntold that I would lead that planning for the site visit that was happening in October, and kind of planned and executed a very effective site visit and final presentation to FIFA. And then we had to continue to sort of revise and resubmit materials related to the bid until June of 2022, when they announced the host cities, and Kansas City was lucky enough to be named one of the U.S. host cities for 2026. And then, obviously, we had a real project, and so I stayed involved, stayed engaged, just helping things move forward while we figured out kind of what that entity was going to look like, and while that got propped up.
Share with us a little bit about what the entity looks like. I mean, you have a stated purpose. I know you have certain goals. Enlighten us, please.
Yeah. I mean, really, there's sort of, it's governed by a board of directors with an executive committee. Right now I'm a team of one. I'm hoping that changes soon. And, the mission is sort of threefold. It's to elevate Kansas City on the global stage, to make sure that we put our best foot forward for this unprecedented event that money can't buy, the marketing and publicity that's going to come from it. The community engagement piece is really critical. I think this is a different opportunity for Kansas City than it really is any other host city, because of the level of community engagement that we're the smallest host city, which is a positive thing. I mean, we got a quarterfinal match, so they clearly think that we are poised to be an incredible host. But I think the level of community engagement here in Kansas City and throughout our region is much different. And so we needed to, kind of, the board is really very committed to making sure that the community is engaged in a major way. It's not to disparage my other, sort of my colleagues in the bigger cities, but with respect, like New York and New Jersey, like they expect to get these events, and there's less of a, sort of opportunity to engage the community around it. So they're moving forward with their plans, and I think it's great, but I think we have an obligation at KC 2026 to make sure that we are keeping people abreast of the status of the planning, giving them tools and resources to understand how they need to, small businesses need to prep for this event. And so that's also a big focus of the board. And then the third real pillar is making sure that we don't squander this opportunity to create a lasting legacy in Kansas City, right? So let's use this massive event to make leave Kansas City better than where we found it leading into the World Cup in 2026. And that could be in the form of transportation, more permanent transportation options, or a robust safety and security plan that could be rolled out for other major events. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we're thinking through from a legacy project standpoint. And so that's also what the board is really focused on, kind of shepherding and managing.
You got a lot of work.
That is, yes, we do. We do have a lot of work.
Does it make it any more challenging to put something like this together as a quote nonprofit organization?
Um, that's a great question. I, yes, probably, but I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, I think that um there's a lot of work to be done, to your point. And at the end of the day, we're planning an event. And my main role is to deliver that event that we're contractually obligated to deliver. Um and there's a lot of moving pieces around what we need to plan. Um so while at times I wish that I could just sort of run and make decisions and you know and sort of operate at the speed that I would like to operate. I think that having this nonprofit entity in place and seeking sort of advice and guidance from some of the board members, it's the right thing to do. It's preparing our city to welcome and host this event above and beyond just the nuts and bolts of the production element of it, right? And the city services and planning and activating Fan Fest. So it's making sure that, again, we're not squandering this opportunity to use this massive event to make some improvements in our region.
As this all comes together and you continue fine-tuning organizationally how to pull it off, and we have no doubt that you will pull this off.
All of us as a city will pull it off. I do,
Is there a role for the community, for the average citizen to volunteer or engage?
Yeah. I mean, so that's a good question. So we will have, the goal is to have staff-led working groups that support the planning verticals. So for example, transportation or safety and security, marketing, communications, community engagement. And so, what that opportunity looks like for the quote unquote general public is a little bit to be determined. Like, we will certainly be seeking assistance from people to help lead those working groups, but those working groups can't be hundreds of people, right? It's got to be a tighter group of people that then help figure out and manage the engagement of that larger group of people in our community through kind of a trickle down effect. There will be volunteer opportunities. Now, the volunteer opportunities are really supported and driven by FIFA, so we can market the opportunities for people to help, and we would need thousands of volunteers to help with this event. But FIFA has a very specific process in place whereby potential volunteers need to apply through them, go through background checks, go through training and things like that. So the procurement of the volunteers will be a very collaborative effort between KC 2026 and FIFA, and frankly FIFA and all the markets that that they're hosting in. Mm-hmm. But then I would also encourage the larger community, and again particularly small businesses or arts and entertainment venues that are most times nonprofit entities. We know it's coming. We know the dates now. We know, the schedule. So I think it's really important that the individual organizations throughout our community also figure out on their own kind of how they want to take advantage of this, right? I mean, I've spoken to some arts organizations that are being really mindful and thoughtful of planning some of their programming to be reflective of, this international event in 2026. Mm-hmm. So, does that impact kind of what programming you're contemplating, bringing and producing to Kansas City? How can the World Cup lay in over that? Same with small businesses. It's coming. You know that we're going to have an influx of visitors. How do you want to take advantage of this, and how will you potentially consider investing some dollars that you might not normally invest to get your business out in front of people? Soccer match is 90 minutes. Maybe it gets to 100, just over 100 minutes with stoppage time. But these people are going to be coming to Kansas City for days. And once they're done with the match, and then some of them might not even attend a match, but if they're attending a match, they're gonna have a lot of time to fill outside of that match. And sure, they'll probably stop by FanFest, but they're gonna want to explore our region. And, we will have some marketing assets available to help promote all of the incredible attractions and, sort of, again, arts and culture opportunities and things like that. But I would just really impress upon the individual organizations, just consider this as you're working through your own plans for marketing and programming in 2026. Don't wait for us to dictate to you. Be mindful about taking it upon yourself to figure out what that looks like from your strategic perspective.
We're talking with Katherine Holland. She is the executive director of KC 2026. I had to remember which way to flip the numbers, but we won't be forgetting because it's coming in and it's huge and it's big. I love that you're, throwing out the challenge of telling other nonprofits, be thinking about this. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
How many millions are we expecting to roll in here this summer of 2026?
I'm hesitant to give a number because, this is such an unprecedented event that, even if we were to look at past World Cups, it's probably not applicable. So the World Cup was last hosted in the United States in 1994, and it still holds the ticket sales record for all World Cups ever hosted. The 1994 World Cup in the U.S. holds the ticket sales record, and it was significantly smaller in size and scope than 2026 will be. So that's not even comparable at this point. It also will largely depend on the teams that end up competing here, right? Like there's going to be a different, Germany or France or, Argentina may attract a very different type of fan and maybe more fans than maybe some of the smaller countries that maybe don't have as robust of a soccer culture. So again, I'm hesitant to give a specific number. I will say it will be, FIFA is calling it the largest sporting event in the history of the world. This will be the largest event that we could host in our region. So, it doesn't even matter if I gave you a number or not. We all just need to be prepared to welcome these folks to Kansas City. And I know there's been a lot of talk about all the international travelers that will come, but I think we also can't forget the fact that we're going to probably welcome a ton of national travelers from across the United States who haven't necessarily had a reason to travel to our region. And now, they're thinking, what's going on with Kansas City? I've sort of heard about it a lot. Like it's on all these lists, and it's probably going to be more affordable for people to come and experience this event in Kansas City. So I think we also need to be mindful of that. This is an opportunity for us to showcase our region to obviously an international audience, but also a national audience, which I think, from a return on investment and sort of the long tail return is a real potential benefit for us, right? Like let's get them here. Let's create an incredible experience for them around the World Cup, but let's also leave them wanting more. We want them to come back to Kansas City, and we want them to go and talk about how great Kansas City was, so that their friends and their family and whomever are thinking, man, I got to check out that place. Everybody says it's so wonderful, and the people are so kind, and the food is so good. So, again, I think that it's just this unprecedented opportunity to show off our region in a way that we've never been given before.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, where is the best place for people to check out, the very latest on what's going on, opportunities, et cetera?
So, again, we're still, believe it or not, I know it doesn't seem like it's very far away. We're kind of in the early phases of planning. I would recommend that people visit our website and sign up to receive emails about the event. That is probably the place that we will, and I'm just looking, we just recently changed our URL at the direction of FIFA. So it's Kansas City FWC, so FIFA World Cup, Kansas City FWC26.com. And there is an opt-in, ability to opt in to receive email updates. That is where I recommend people who are interested in receiving updates go right now, because that's where we'll be distributing, critical updates and the opportunities to sign up for volunteering and things like that.
what at this point, we're quote unquote 2 years out, what's the biggest challenge for you in putting all this together and overseeing this quote nonprofit, et cetera?
Yeah. Resources right now, I'll be honest. I mean, I think we need to I need some resources to help manage all of this. But if we're talking about kind of a project specific element, transportation is our biggest challenge. Transportation in coordination with safety and security. But we are the smallest market. We have the least robust mass transit system. We're contractually obligated to deliver a transit system, and it doesn't have to be complimentary, but that people can easily navigate to get between kind of three of the key venues within the host city, which would be the airport, the competition venue, which is Arrowhead Stadium, and then FIFA Fan Fest, wherever that ends up being. Our vision has always been to over deliver on that transportation plan so that the folks that are coming to our region to visit and experience this event do have the opportunity to easily get to all of the attractions in around our region, easily sort of navigate hotel clusters. We expect a lot of people are going to stay in Overland Park, and so we need to make sure that they have the ability to navigate our region without potentially needing to rent a car. So that really is a challenge that we have to work on and overcome. So again, selfishly, resources first and foremost, because it's a big project to be a person of one on, and then again, project specific would be transportation and making sure that we're delivering a quality experience that is not less than the other host cities, right? That maybe have more robust transit options.
Right. Well, if there's anybody can lead the charge, it's you. I would love for you to share a little bit. I mean, you're KC native.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But your background is quite extensive in doing these things. Would you share a little bit about your background before you came to this and now everybody knows you as the FIFA queen? There you go.
Yeah. I was born and raised in Kansas City. And then I went to college in Connecticut. So I went to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and played soccer, and actually got a full-time internship at ESPN my senior year of college because they were just down the road in Bristol, Connecticut. So that was sort of my first foray into working for a major sports organization. Moved to New York City right out of college. Actually moved a month to the day before 9/11, which was an interesting time to move there. Yeah. And ended up, getting my first job out of college with a very small marketing and promotions firm that handled marketing and promotions for Broadway shows. I was pitching this much larger firm for support from one of their clients, which was American Express, the credit card company. And eventually, as the sort of media landscape started to evolve to a more digital focus, American Express partnered with Yahoo to underwrite the cost to launch a channel within Yahoo. I'm sure you remember they had Yahoo Autos and Yahoo Movies and Yahoo News, right. Yahoo Sports. So they partnered to underwrite the cost to launch Yahoo Broadway. So I was recruited to come to this bigger marketing agency to help manage that project, and then was also managing other sponsorships that American Express was invested in, primarily in the sports and entertainment space. And then one of the partnerships that I was managing was actually the Madison Square Garden company. So American Express had been one of the longest standing sponsors of that. A competitor, JP Morgan Chase, wanted to get into the sponsorship game in a major way and ended up the partnership deal with American Express was up for renewal. Chase came in and offered a substantial increase in what, compared to what American Express was paying. So Madison Square Garden ended up divesting of their relationship with Amex and onboarding JP Morgan Chase as their official banking and credit card partner. And I was really bummed because I loved managing the partnership between American Express and Madison Square Garden. It was, as you can imagine, really fun living in New York and working on that partnership. It was just, the world's most famous arena, just an iconic venue. But luck would have it that actually the Madison Square Garden company reached out to me about coming property side to help them build the team that would lead this. It was basically an internal agency within Madison Square Garden that was specifically focused on managing this JP Morgan Chase partnership. Eventually, they folded Visa in, so Chase was the official commercial banking partner. Visa was the official credit card partner. And then I was recruited to come to San Francisco and work with Visa for a few years to help them launch a card product that was meant to directly compete with American Express Platinum. It's getting very granular, so I apologize. And quickly realized like I didn't love living on the West Coast. So I was trying to get back to the East Coast, back to New York. I took some time to travel. And I have to give my parents credit, specifically my mom. She sort of said, Katherine, Kansas City is a very, very different place than when you left to go to college when you were 17 or 18. You should think about checking it out. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe. Okay. Like I'll reconnect with some people. Ended up connecting with Kathy Nelson, the president and CEO of the Sports Commission and Visit KC, and then also Brenda Tinnen, who at the time was the general manager of Sprint Center, obviously now T-Mobile Center. And they knew that they were going to, they had a suspicion that they were going to win the opportunity to host the 2017 US Figure Skating Championships, and asked me to lead that. And for me, I was like, this is perfect. This is a year project, January 2016 through January 2017, to see if I want to be back in Kansas City. Like, is Kansas City really different than when I left? Obviously, I'm still here. So my mom likes to remind me almost every day that she was right. And yeah, it's been great. So after that project, I stayed on with the Sports Commission and helped lead the marketing and sales department, sales being obviously the bids that we submit to recruit events to Kansas City. So led the NFL draft bid. And I was working on, again, World Cup adjacently, led some of the NCAA bids that we submitted. And then, again, moved into the kind of World Cup management role full time earlier this, during the bid process. And then, once we won it this year. So it's been great. I mean, I feel really lucky to have, returned to Kansas City at the time that I did. I also have to credit, our previous sort of leaders for having the vision for what it would take to kind of revitalize Kansas City, right? Like starting with the downtown and the crossroads, because without that and things like the streetcar and things like the new airport, we wouldn't even be in a position to bid on these types of events. Like if we didn't have our new airport, we would not be a host city for FIFA World Cup. So I'm very appreciative because that takes a long time, as you know. I mean, that sort of to revitalize and rebuild a community takes a long time. So I'm very grateful to some of our previous leaders in the private and public sector that have helped Kansas City sort of get to where we are right now. And I think we're only going to continue to sort of go up perception wise, right? In our country, and World Cup certainly helps that.
Katherine, it's amazing. We're so grateful you took time to talk with us about everything that's going on. We encourage our audience to keep following this. Kansas City, we used to be the best kept secret, and now I don't think we're a secret anymore. And it's thanks to people like you leading the charge. So thanks for your time. And
oh, my pleasure.
Go KC.
That's right. I appreciate your time as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, also a nonprofit. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares, please visit our website, which is kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio, and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. And don't forget, you can catch us on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on KC.